Laughing and screaming are two of the biggest reactions that a movie can evoke, so it's little wonder that the horror comedy genre hits so hard. There are tons of great horror comedies to watch on streaming, from genre-defining classics to maybe something you've never heard of. Here's our guide to a few you can check out right now on Netflix, Amazon, and more. Few movie titles sell a movie better than Killer Clowns from Outer Space. A group of aliens who just happen to resemble clowns invade a small town and start capturing people. They use magic tricks, deadly cotton candy, and man-eating popcorn to carry out their deadly plans. From the Dickies' wacky circus theme song to the truly inventive practical effects, this is an 80s gem that was a killer when it came out, and it still holds up today. Extraordinary is a horror comedy from Ireland that manages to seamlessly mix ectoplasm and exorcisms with likable rom-com moments that are actually good. The film follows an ordinary driving instructor who revives her supernatural abilities to save a possessed girl. It features SNL alum Will Forte in a role he was born to play, a devil-worshipping, washed-up 1970s rock star.
Chinese is here, love.
Coming, my sweet. I'm doing an incantation.
If you're a fan of What We Do in the Shadows, this is a movie you'll definitely want to check out. Long before Peter Jackson was the prestigious, Oscar-winning director of The Lord of the Rings, he was making insane splatter comedies in New Zealand. Bad Taste was as aptly named in crazy gory debut film, shot with his friends on weekends over the course of 4 years. It tells the simple story of a small town that is invaded by aliens, and everyone gets covered in blood.
A special thanks to Peter Nelson and Ken Cammons, who were with me right from the days of Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles, which were wisely overlooked by the Academy.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I swore I was sick to death of zombies, but last year, this Japanese horror comedy came around, and it instantly became one of my favorite movies of maybe the past decade, if not all time. Now, I can't spoil anything about this movie. There's an ingenious twist to it. It starts out as a seemingly low-budget zombie film, but just know this, when it starts, you might not be that into it, but stick with it and watch it until the credits, and then keep watching the credits. There's a reason why it won piles of awards. Living comedy legend Mel Brooks turned his attention to classic Universal horror movies in this now legendary horror spoof. Gene Wilder plays
Dr. Frankenstein. Frankenstein.
A distant relative to the much more famous Victor, who sets about building his own monster. Brooks manages to capture the feel of true vintage horror by using many of the same props from Universal's 1931 Frankenstein. This is a movie that is permanently on many people's lists. Written by producer Joss Whedon, this very clever meta-horror movie starts off as your standard backwoods slasher. A group of friends head to a remote location, a cabin in the woods, but partway in, it takes a sharp turn. So this is another one I'm gonna kind of recommend you go in blind with, because that is absolutely the best way to watch this. The 1980s were just unquestionably the best decade for horror comedy, and Return of the Living Dead is one of its best. In the film, it turns out that Romero's classic was based on real-life events.
Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Sure. What about it?
Did you know that movie was based on a true case?
The dead are brought back to life by an experimental military chemical. A drum of that chemical is found at a mortuary, and there's predictably nightmarish consequences from finding this. The kind of goofy 80s punk rock soundtrack, the legendary makeup effects, and the very dark laughs make this a Zomcom classic. Tucker and Dale are a pair of kind of slapstick knuckleheads whose backwoods trip starts with a misunderstanding and ends with gruesome murder. Surprisingly, this is a very witty film that takes slasher movie cliches of deranged redneck killers stalking vacationing students, and it turns them on their head and makes something totally new out of it. Housebound focuses on a troubled teenager who is sentenced to house arrest in a haunted house. The result is pretty funny, but not without some legit spooky scares that make this a blast to watch. I think we can call this the best monster movie of the 1990s. Tremors effortlessly combines comedy, action, and monsters. Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward play a pair of repairmen in a small Texas town who are forced to deal with giant, people-eating sandworms. It's a hugely enjoyable experience. Just skip the many, many sequels. Director Stuart Gordon started off his career strong with his debut film, Re-Animator. Very loosely based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, it stars Jeffrey Combs as an obsessed medical student who develops a serum to bring the dead back to life. Combs delivers just a masterful performance as the incredibly unhinged scientist whose experiments go way out of control. For many horror fans, Evil Dead 2 is the gold standard by which all horror comedies are judged. It's really a loose remake of the first movie, but with the insane energy cranked way up to 11. Bruce Campbell delivers what is definitely his career-defining performance as Ash, who is forced to kill his possessed girlfriend, then spends the rest of the movie fighting off the forces of evil that he accidentally conjured. The distinct, kinda crazed camera work, the next-level gore gags, and the very quotable dialogue makes this a horror comedy masterpiece. And of course, there are way more to stream. Do you have any picks that should or shouldn't have been on this list? You can let me know in the comments below, and I'll respond letting you know just how dead wrong you are. Maybe. Yeah, you could be right. I don't know. We'll see. But also, remember to subscribe to GameSpot Universe to get more of this content about the stuff you love.